How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting, and welcome back to Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, 3rd chapter. You might notice something. It's a little awkward. This is not where we were. And you also might have noticed that we didn't have a video last week. Well, that was because the video file got corrupted, and it was beyond repair. Also, the background's changed. Lots happened. It was a busy weekend. The two things are actually related. The reorganization happened after I lost the footage, but I'm just kind of redoing the room a bit, just because layout was a problem and I needed to kind of find a new solution. This is looking like what's going to be. By the way, if you have suggestions or things, what I'm thinking about doing is trying to get a shelf behind me. There's two things that's happening. For number one, I want to put a shelf behind me and put some like stuff on it, maybe stuff we've collected, and maybe I'll get some collectibles of my own to kind of fill it up slowly over time, just so we have something to look at. And the other thing I'm to say about this is that I'm also getting a standing desk. So as I'm recording, I can be on my feet. I feel like that'll give me a lot more energy. I can be a bit more mobile. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think it'll be really a good addition to kind of our setup. So really thrilled about that aspect of it all. But regardless of that, that's the changes out of the way. Yeah, so I recorded a while, and none of it really got saved, except for like my audio, which would be really pointless without any context. So we're going to have to backtrack. There's just a few highlights we're going to go back to. There's a door I went through, and then this is the save right before a very critical moment, which we will go through as well. So basically what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hop back and like literally just rewatch the door that we saw, that I saw that wasn't quite, that the capture got destroyed, and then we'll come here and we'll continue on from there, and then maybe do a little bit more. But there's a few things that happened during that recording, because the thing is, it was a long session, but there's a lot of combat, there's a lot of exploration, there's some chests that I opened up. I don't know if it's worth going back and reading those. Just know that we opened the chests that I found. There is one other thing I want to talk about. Here, I hit the threshold. Battles 312, victory 310, knockouts 0 fled. So for what people said, that should have been like kind of a trigger point or some kind of reward that gets offered. I haven't seen anything, so I don't know if that's something that's like a door that I have yet to encounter or something else, but just wanted to show you I did do it. 300 battles with no retreats, 300 victories even. I had 9 failed battles, so hey, you know, I'm a failure at a lot of things. I also like how like we have these different tabs here, and the cube function here summarized as cube fun, which is hilarious. Anyway, so we're gonna kind of just jump into that. Basically, I'm gonna go straight to the door. I think it's Star Door 5, where we'll talk about the story there. We're gonna go through the motions. I'll probably share. I'll try and share what my thoughts were at the time. But again, it's not a first impressions thing. This happens occasionally. If you've watched the channel enough, you know it's just like I have limited access to fail-safes. Full-time streamers often have setups where they are like purposely capturing multiple screens simultaneously. So like they'll have a couple computers. So I have my main computer that's like running this whole program, right? Then they'd have a secondary computer that is capturing what this computer is broadcasting. And it could be, and you could even have a tertiary system that's capturing the screen of that computer. There have been sometimes where YouTubers have said that like their initial computer capture crashed, but because they were also capturing on the secondary device, they were able to kind of get that backup footage, which was never as high a quality, but it was there. You know, I don't have the funds to have a secondary, like, powerful computer that I can just use for streaming or recording. I'm just me, okay? So, excuse me. I apologize that it happened. Thankfully, I really feel like if there was a time for it to happen, this was one of those good times where a good portion was just combat and exploration in an area that didn't have a whole lot to show. So, whilst it's unfortunate, it's not the worst. So, we're going to jump back and teleport ourselves to that door and kind of just go through it again. Again, that's kind of what's nice about this this setup, is that we can kind of just skip the things. I think what it was is that, yeah, it was Star Door 7, I think, is this trial. And I will say this much. Yeah, okay, so this was basically right at the beginning of, like, this floor. Like, we appear basically right like here, and it's like the first thing you can do is come here, and that's what I did. This door is bullcrap, I will say. In fact, did I even change my equipment since that? Oh yeah, I did. But there's a fight with a giant toy thing. It's basically the same enemy we fought with Tita in the first door she did, but in that fight, it was just like a random enemy. This time it has a bunch of surrounding mobs that look like a bunch of toys. These freaking toys, they hit you, and they would instantly petrify you, and then if they hit you again, it would instantly knock you out. And there were like 8 or 9 of them. And I had like Joshua and Estelle fire off their Joshua and Reese firing off their S-crafts, and it didn't kill all of them. So it wasn't like, oh, I could just sweep through with massive like crafts. Like, maybe if I brought a full team of like full area of effect crafts, maybe. But still, no, it was not that. So, but I did beat it. It was one of the reasons why the combat took so long. I had to try like 2 or 3 times, but we're gonna jump in the door. I hope I don't have to do the fight again, because I just realized like it didn't say I didn't have to. But yeah, like once you beat the fight, we got to see this. So, because it's cool lore, and I'll kind of talk about what my impressions were. Yeah. Because it's a history of the orbital gears and orbital technology. It has some unfortunate name. The names they happen to choose for this game, I almost wish I could like talk to the original writers and be like, why did they choose the names they chose? Because man, they either didn't age well at all, or they aged especially well, depending on the intention of the writers. So, used for orbital energy, contained a full septium within septium to cause a variety of useful effects.
発明されてからわずか半世紀余りで文字通り世界を作り変えてしまいました。
Yep.
暖房や照明などの日用品から国防を支える戦車や大砲などの兵器まで、今では動力機なしの生活など考えられません。
I do think this is a really fun idea, and this is something I've done with my personal world building, because like when I can manage to find the time, I try to run like tabletop games like D&D, Pathfinder, stuff like that. And I've done writing kind of my own personal world and like setting. And that's the kind of, I took a little bit of inspiration from this after the fact. Like I'd started the world before I started playing Trails, but now the way I try and portray it is this idea of like, what if magic is something that's just utilized like a technology rather than just like mystical thing? Where like, yeah, it is mystical, but like, I'm doing a world where they're incorporating magic into technology rather than simply just having some people who can use magic. And I feel like that's been a really fun way to explore, like, and expand upon like what would normally be like the structured tropes that you always see when you play games like that.
その普及と発展等になってきたのが我々エプスタイン財団なのです。
So they say Epstein. Epstein is how it reads in English, and that's the naming one that's like, I wonder if that was intentional or if that was just like a random name they came up with.
当財団の設立は七葉暦1155年、前年に死去したエプスタイン博士の意思を受け、その優秀な数人の弟子たちによって立ち上げられました。
It was funny. I don't think this hit me last time, but Epstein. They're saying it like that. I think it's supposed to just be a play on Einstein, but Epstein. But it's really, the spelling is the same to Epstein, which is just unfortunate.
博士の故郷であるレマン自治州に本部が設けられ、現在でも同地を拠点として活動を続けています。
I'm gonna say what I was gonna say about this for a little bit.
設立当初の当財団は規模も小さく、各地で動力機の普及活動を行っていたものの、その反応は決して芳しくありませんでした。
So Lehman, this place where Epstein was from, he it's like I remember I hear that, and even now I'm like, where is that? Like on a map? Maybe I can see if I can look at a world map in the game. I don't think I can, but maybe like later I can look it up. But like, where is this place? Because I'm interested in it now. I'd love to like know more about it.
このような状況を打開するため、自らの力で動力技術の種をまこうと、 レマン自治州を離れる研究者たちも現れました。
And one of them was Russell.
一人は G. シュミット博士。
So I'm curious because they have names for these guys. I wonder if they're going to come up in future games.
機械工学の権威としてすでにその名を轟かせていた博士は各国の企業を訪問し動力機の有益性を説いて回ります。
So Professor Schmidt went kind of like down the route of, I'd say, kind of corporate / probably capitalism, because his target was like, hey, the best way to get this into people's hands seems to be like, let's go persuade like production companies and technology facilitators to like produce these goods because it'll make them a lot of money, but at least it gets it out there into the hands of common people.
次にエル・ハミルトン博士。
Hamilton.
技術格差を睨み当初から辺境にこそ動力機が必要と考えていた博士は
So he takes more of the agrarian / egalitarian look, where he says, hey, like, it shouldn't be about the money. It should be about where the greatest like benefit come from these resources. And he rightly, I think, analyzes and says, if there's any aspect of like the world that needs immediate improvement that could best benefit everybody, it is in the development of remote areas. So it probably reduces life expectancy like issues and makes it so that people have longer lives and have like better lives. It's kind of like Doctors Without Borders. It's like, yeah, you could be a doctor serving in a big hospital and making a good amount of money, but there's something special about the people who dedicate like that knowledge that they have to go into rural and underdeveloped areas and nations to provide that really necessary medical like treatment and like knowledge, sharing that information to people who just don't have access to be able to learn those things. They can't go to the nice universities. They probably can't even like leave like a 50-mile radius of where they were born, let alone like travel anywhere around the world and like learn something. So like that's kind of Hamilton's idea, and maybe it's more like grassroots and and I also think it's important it would be like, oh yeah, you're going to be going to the agrarian areas and helping farmers and those types. And I was saying that I think it's a fairly right assessment, because while it might not help the technology spread faster, by getting it into the hands of the people who are producing the bare necessities, food, water, and stable like support that allows for like the larger population centers to exist, it's probably a really good place to put technology like first and foremost. I think a lot of nations, especially even the first world nations that probably don't think much about this kind of stuff, would be really beneficial to invest in things like farmers, making sure that they have the best that they can have in order to provide food, which is just intrinsic. And especially in a situation where like, what if there were technological issues? What if there was a breakdown of alliances or trade negotiations between nations? If you subsist only on trade, if trade imports is the only way you have enough food to feed your population, what happens if that shuts down for some reason? You want to make sure you have at least some sustainability.
すでに親交の厚かったブレイサーギルドの動向を仰ぎ僻地への技術振興を目的とした派遣団を編成。
I also really like that he wants to work specifically and I targeted with the bracers, saying like, hey, these bracers are like, their whole mission is about helping people who need it rather than doing it for pure profit. There is obviously profit involved because they have to survive, but the idea of the contracts works really, really well. So yeah, I think that's a pretty fun system. I think it's really interesting, and I'd love to know more about Professor Hamilton specifically. I think his story sounds like it'd be the most interesting, and I wonder if we get to meet him sometime.
自身も諸地域を巡察して回り、普及啓蒙活動の下地を築き上げました。
I also said that like I wonder because Erica and Dan Russell also kind of seem to be under the similar philosophy of like traveling to places where there was not a lot of technological advancement or access. Taking orbital technology there seems to be a high priority for them. So they subscribe, it seems, to the philosophy of Professor Hamilton, which is funny because, as we'll see, like he's a co-worker, conspirator, or like a fellow member of the Epstein group with her dad, Professor Russell. But I think it's just interesting, like seeing this like philosophy there, and I want to know more about Professor Hamilton.
そして最後は
There he
今
is.
や動力革命の父とまで呼ばれる A. ラッセル博士。
Yeah, it's so interesting because like it's clear that all three of them were pushing for the same agenda. So why was Professor Russell so much more successful to the point where he gets the kind of the recognition of the father of the Orbital Revolution?
博士は故郷に戻り、故国リベールにて技術の向上に力を尽くし、帰国からわずか1年でサイス技術工房、後の中央工房を設立し、レバン自治州以外で初めて動力機の製造に成功します。
This is the thing that impressed me the most. I definitely want to make sure to restate because I'm thinking of different things now too. So like it's not even the same thoughts I had at the time. But look at this. Where was the investment that had the best growth and showed the most promise? And it was Professor Russell, where he focused on research and development. Sure, you have the appeal to the corporate entities to say, hey, we need money to invest in these technologies. Please invest it. You know, I'm sure that was successful in some regards. There was like making sure that orbital technology got directly to where it was most helpful and most needed. That was Professor Hamilton. And that makes sense too, because, you know, that's getting into like the literal hands of the people who could best benefit themselves and society as a whole by having orbital technology. But where was it actually begun where things really took off? It was by somebody who went down, was given as we'll see, was given a budget and was able to work toward developing new, better, and more efficient versions of the technology.
さらに3年後、工房の視察に訪れた当時のリベール国王エドガー3世から多額の資金援助を受けると。
That's the thing. I think the most important thing we can do for technology, granted, technology is this weird Pandora's box where terrible, terrible things can come from development and research from that stuff, but I would say that my genuine opinion, because history has showed time and again that this is true, despite how weirdly obsessed most political parties are with trying to somehow avoid this, that the greatest technological achievements and the greatest like leaps in like technological advancement occurred when large entities like governments are able to back research without a guarantee. That's the big difference. Because if you approach companies, they're willing to perform and support research, but they're only willing to support things that they are confident will have minimal risk. So they want a proven technology that can be mass produced at an upsell. And you can even watch Shark Tank, and like they'll see ideas that are fantastic. They'll see stupid ones too, but there's plenty of ideas that are genuinely good ideas, but they won't support because they're not convinced that like they'll see an upend to it, right? They are profit driven by nature, and that's a business for you. It has to be. They can't function otherwise, but it limits the scope of what they're willing to attempt. They'll try some new stuff to try and have an edge, but they're always going to be risk assessing, and they're going to be very quick to turn around as soon as things go poorly. You want a good example of this? Look at the gaming industry as a whole right now. Look how quickly they'll buy a new studio, expect them to make a game, and if the game doesn't immediately pop off and become a 9 out of 10 game of the year, they shut them down, fire all the people, absorb all their IPs, and just walk away. Like, it's happening again and again and again, and that's because that's a corporate mandate. They aren't looking at these processes and saying, hey, you know, sometimes things are going to fail in a creative process or in a research process. Sometimes we're going to pour money into a project and it's not going to pay off. But the thing is that the skills that are learned can often be applied into something that would be successful in the future. But corporates don't see it that way. They think number needs to go up, profits need to go burr, we need to make sure we get our bonuses. And that means that there's a lot of ideas that could be fantastic that die on the operating floor because they refuse to pour any resources into it unless they feel it is guaranteed to be successful. And then going and giving orbital technology directly to consumers that need it the most is very helpful and immediate, but it doesn't actually lead to any development or improvement because you're putting this technology into the hands of people who've never seen it before. 99.9% of them are never going to learn beyond functionality, let alone how to develop and expand on new ideas. They might be able to find new applications for the technology you give them. That's definitely something that happens, but it's going to be very rare. And they're usually going to be very small scope, not so much this massive like, we're gonna try and find a revolutionary new idea from nothing. It's gonna be we're going to try and tweak the application from the way that probably scientists like Professor Hamilton thought it could be used for, and we're going to find another use that utilizes it the same way. Maybe it's like, say you have an orbital technology that is effectively a water pump, right? To help pump water from a well up to the surface so that you don't have to use a bucket. Well, if you take that same pumping capability, turn it on its side, you could actually pipe water from a stream that's a lot more consistent than a well, pipe it further distance with the same amount of energy and orbital technology, and get it delivered to the same place. That would be like a good example of like the technology isn't changed or developed, it's just applied in a way that's a bit more intelligent that a scientist might not initially understand or conceive of, because like when they were coming up with the idea, they didn't have all the information. Still good, but it's when Professor Russell is being given a lot of funds where the king says, hey, what you're doing is really good. I want you to pursue your interests and like follow your instincts and develop stuff. How many times do you think Professor Russell fails at developing something before succeeding? What was it like not Einstein, what I'm talking about, Edison, who he was kind of a scumbag in a lot of ways, but he did have some things very strongly right. And one of his sayings, I think, really still hits the nail on the head, because there was a news story, like an interview that he did, where they were like talking to him about his development of the light bulb, which was a revolutionary change, being able to like produce a lot of like use electricity to produce way more light and more consistent light than anything that had been developed until that time. Because at the time, gas lamps were pretty much like the norm and the best that they had. And the interviewer asked him, saying like, hey, you spent like, I think they said 3 years of development to get a single light bulb to work. And they said you documented having about 100 different iterations before you found the successful one. Why did it take so? Why did you keep going when it looked like it clearly couldn't work? And he said like, oh no, I didn't, it wasn't that it didn't work at all. I just learned 99 ways not to make a light bulb, and I learned one way to do it right. I mean, that's the idea. It's like, you have to build in failures into the model, and you need to be allowing for that, because long-term success comes from taking the risks that facilitate some failure in order to be able to achieve something great. And a corporate entity is very unlikely to do that. And if they do, they usually have to get grant money from a government. So instead of having a corporation that gets grant money from a government that may or may not be used to actually further better technology, it feels like it's better to just give it straight to the source of people who want to develop that technology, give them the resources to try things out and see what works, because that's where true innovation will shine. And I know this is a super big rant, but at least in my country, in the last 5 or like 10 years, it feels like one of the first things that gets sacrificed is the motivation for scientists to experiment and to drive for new technologies. And sadly, a lot of it in my country has been politically motivated, because they don't like some of the results that the scientists are claiming. And so because they say, hey, these scientists believe in things I don't like or believe in, I'm not going to give any of the scientists money, because I don't want to support people who don't support my interests. And that's a great way to kill yourself when it comes to like technological advancement and technological innovation. So I'm highly disturbed by that. That's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in my life. And it's not like it's been that long, but it's still scary. And this is a great example of like, why was Russell so successful? It's because he was given the liberty and the room to expand and grow himself. He also was very obviously good with the money that he was given. He wasn't just spending it willy-nilly or whisking it away. He was genuinely trying to make new products.
リベール王国には瞬く間に動力機が浸透し、他国が羨むほどの繁栄ぶりを示すようになります。
And see, that's where he's successful. Because he was able to innovate, and because he was able to improve upon things and be able to experiment, that naturally trickled into the market, and the market became boom. It became one of the most successful. And now Liberl, this fairly small nation on the scale of the continent, has become the powerhouse technological center of the entire world. And everyone's jealous of them. And I think they've said that the orbital technology and like the big walls that they had built in their country both contributed to them being able to tackle an invasion from a much stronger enemy faction, because they just had a technological edge. That's so important.
王国での成功は、それまであまり良い印象を持たれなかった人々の動力機に対する認識を見事に変え、以降各国から当財団に技術提供を呼びかける声が相次ぐようになり、財団の経営基盤も確固たるものとなっていきます。
And once that barrier is broken down, now they can go full steam ahead.
広きにわたる呼びかけと地道ながらも確実な研究活動。先達のこうした努力があったからこそ、後に動力革命と呼ばれる急激な動力機の普及へとつながっていったのです。
Look at this. Okay, this is something I looked at. I was like, man, I can tell that these are actually words, but it's like the aspect ratio is so blurry, it's like hard to read most of it. I wish I could get a cleaned up version of this and actually read it. But it's basically a larger or maybe like a more like in-depth version of what we just heard. Like it looks like it has a timeline, it has like graphs of like of data, and it probably had the development of the orbits. But yeah, like this looks pretty cool. And then look at this, prototype of orbit. This is something I noticed in the background last time. And like look at prototype of orbit, mystery of artifact. So it sounds like they because the artifacts are these powerful like objects that basically look like magic, right? But they're not. They're technologically based. They're based off the same technology, like, or it's more like orbital technology is based on the study of artifacts. And so I wondered, I was like, so if they studied an artifact and got orbital technology from it, I wonder what the church's position was on that, because the church was all about like, we keep artifacts away because it's too dangerous. They are based and predicated based on what we learned from the Liberl arc. The belief and the philosophy behind, hey, capture artifacts and prevent them from being misused not only comes from the fact that the artifacts being misused are very, very dangerous. I think it also was to try and ultimately prevent the orbital revolution, because it's almost like, imagine a world where we have these nuclear devices that can destroy the entire planet. Imagine that they got utilized in a way that nearly destroyed all of humanity. The response is that might be made by some people would be to say, hey, this technology and the road that led us to it is far too risky to just allow to happen again. So anytime we find remnants of technology that could lead us into relearning how to develop and arm and fire weapons of such mass destruction, we should take them and hide them away and prevent them from being misused. Because it'd be better to live in a slightly backwards society where more people suffer and technology is stunted than to allow for the mistakes of the past to be redone. I think that's the position of the church. So the church has the best of intentions, but I feel like that the ultimate goal when they were founded especially was not just to like, oh, we got to keep these out of people's hands. We need to stop the technology from being reactivated and discovered, because basically what Ouroboros is doing is exactly what they were terrified of back then. And then another hindsight though is that because of this, because they hide the technology and refuse to like let people expound on it, it's clear that the church at this time doesn't quite remember why they do it anymore. Otherwise, I feel like they would have tried to cut this down really fast when like when Lehman and the Epstein Foundation started like working on this stuff. They probably wanted to shut them down. I bet you there were some people who were like, hey, like, how'd they figure this out? And they found that they probably confiscated that artifact eventually. But you know, at that point it's too late. Cat's out of the bag. But I also think that like they'd be a lot more aggressive toward it if they could remember, or if the original founders of the Gralsritters like saw what was happening. They'd probably be like wanting to go on a big purge or something. But then like look at that. The other downside is that by not letting like people in governments that are supported by the actual people, that are out of the open, that are like, you know, maybe like common people can't like intervene per se, but at least they can be made aware of what's going on. Instead, you have a shadow organization that's pursuing these advancements on their own in an accelerated time pace that has now outstripped even the Gralsritters in their technological capability. And they were able to nearly bring about a potential end of the world scenario by bringing back the Liberl arc from its like banishment to try and save humanity. And the only reason we managed to pull that off is because we are able to like kind of finagle things out by the skin of our teeth. But in most outcomes, if most dice rolls of that situation, unless like you have the right people in the right places, that plan would have ended civilization as we know it, and Ouroboros would have remained technocratic kings of the universe, basically. So I don't know if the church's stance is really a good one, because this kind of shows evidence that like just obscuring the truth and trying to hide it away, it simply means that the people who break the rules are going to be the ones that are going to be able to learn the stuff that could have changed everything. It's disturbing.
当財団の活動は次の3つを柱としています。1、動力機の基礎的研究。2、動力機の普及と啓蒙活動。3、技術を通じての世界平和への寄与。
I love these principles. So first, carry out research on orbits. Makes sense, but granted, to develop technology. 2, spread the technology and inform the public of its benefits. I love this because it's not profit. It's not like profits can be made easily in this space, but like the idea of this foundational activity being like, hey, like this stuff should be spread as much as it can be, like to the point where it might be good to try and make it cheaper than it could be. You know, instead of just playing the market, to just make sure it's more accessible. I feel like this is a tactic that actually was employed a lot in the United States with technological advancements. I think things like cars and the internet and electromagnetic communication devices all were things that were subsidized by the government in order to make them more accessible so they could be more readily like incorporated into the general public. And yeah, while it makes us all kind of dependent on the technology, it's also vastly increased our capabilities and our knowledge base to work with. So while, yeah, the internet can be a scary, dark, twisted place, and AI is probably going to destroy us all someday, it's also good that we are advancing technology in a way that is giving access to common people, and not just exclusive, rich corporations or entities. But then the third one, contributing to world peace or technology. That's quite a double-edged sword, right? Because, yeah, you can have better peace through things like communication. It's probably the best thing that contributes to the more peaceful world we live in, which, despite how it feels sometimes, is a lot more peaceful than it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. There used to be wars all over the place. Like, the United States at one time in the 1800s had like 10 or 12 micro wars happening simultaneously, where an entire war was carried out by like a 2 or 3 warships that would just go to a country, just start attacking civilians, and then demanding that they get to have like trade rights in a city. Like, that happened so much, and so many other countries are doing it too. But like, I know the Americans were. But that's the thing, is like contributing to world peace. It's like, yeah, technology that helps communicate and helps connect people definitely contributes, like making people less likely to fight each other when they can understand each other and not see each other as like, you know, like subhuman. But it also allowed for invention of things like guns and tanks, which are very the antithesis of peaceful intent. So yeah,
いいか、それぞれの活動についてご紹介しましょう。1、動力機の基礎的研究。当財団の最も重要な使命は、無論動力機の改良とさらなる発展です。動力機の動作原理そのものは不変のものですが、基本アーキテクチャと呼ばれる内部構造には、これまでにも何度か大幅な改良が施されてきました。
I do think this is going to be interesting because like I know the stories of so many other games continue forward, so I wonder if they're going to be like able to communicate like advances happening, or if it's going to slow down a little bit because narratively it could be difficult to continually make leaps. But even think about between first and second chapter, they had a massive shift in the capabilities of the orbital, like personal orbits that people could have that would allow them to channel like basically magic. They had a massive step up in their effectiveness. So is that a step up we're going to continue to see, or are we going to see a slowdown so that the stories in a universe that has gotten a lot bigger than they probably originally expected it would get can have like room to breathe?
基本アーキテクチャとは、歯車やネジのような機械的な部品によって構成される機構であるので、工学や技術の進歩によってまだまだ改良の余地があります。
And I remember thinking when I went through this the first time that the idea of like the scaling of objects is probably going to follow a similar track to ours. And so I'm wondering, like, as orbit technology gets more and more like precise, are we going to be able to have smaller and smaller orbs that have less and less power that can exude larger effects? Will people not have to carry around something so big, or will they have an equivalent of a smartphone that will be able to handle what the power that like not even like 5 personal orbits would be capable of channeling at the time? Like where is this going to go, and what could it develop into? And I think it's exciting on every front to expect and to anticipate what that could be. That's going to be really cool to see in future titles.
こうした基礎研究は大きな成果が得られる一方で、研究には長い時間が必要なことが知られており、収益性を重んじる企業では敬遠される傾向にあります。
Exactly, and it's exactly the reason why we need to be able to fund research outside of corporate structures, because corporate structures will always be having a chokehold on development.
当財団が率先してこの分野の研究を進めることは公益性の観点から見て極めて重要と言えるでしょう。2、動力機の普及と啓蒙活動。動力機の普及とその正しい使用方法を世の中に伝えることも当財団の重要な使命です。
This also reminds me of things like vaccines, which are, it's great, but also we're also seeing a time in the world where like the system has failed people, because vaccines were probably one of the greatest inventions ever made, because they saved so many lives of people who normally would just get sick and die, of plagues that would just go and wipe out like millions of people. Like Spanish flu is which after World War I killed more people than the entirety of World War I, is now what we call influenza, because now we have a vaccine that can make it so that, yeah, you'll probably still get sick, and being sick sucks, but it also typically doesn't kill you anymore, where it used to be kind of like a 30% shot. Like 1 out of 3 people who caught influenza just died. It's like, that's awful. And we have now this technology that helps our bodies be able to fight it off with its own natural born protections. And yet people are now like so scared of a shot that's made of material that helps our bodies fight things off naturally, and think it's such an alien thing that they're willing to just go right back to the way it was, mostly because we've had such a wonderful benefits of vaccines long enough that there's entire generations that had no idea what it was like before. That's gross. So yeah, orbital technology, like, it's kind of scary, because like if you don't educate people on the proper way to use it and how it functions, people are going to start mistrusting it or not understand how it works.
すでに先進国では日常の道具となりましたが、辺境や山岳地帯などの都市化されていない地域ではまだ十分に動力機が普及していないのが現状です。
Yeah.
当財団はそうした地域での生活水準の向上のため、遊撃士と技術者からなる地域派遣団を幾度となく編成し、技術支援を繰り返し行ってきました。
But I think it's also important that they remember that the orbital shutdown phenomena from the Liberl arc was a great case example of like how dependency on orbits might not be a great thing. It's like now with electricity, if all the electricity just got shut off and we couldn't turn it back on for a few days, like there's a lot of people who would suffer severely and possibly just flat out die, because we've become so dependent on our current modern systems that if they're disrupted, it just throws everything out of whack. But the smaller cities up in the mountains that hadn't quite developed or adopted orbital technology yet were almost completely unaffected by that crisis. And that's something to remember. Just because you can count on your heat being on, electricity through your house, and the internet existing, doesn't mean you shouldn't prepare yourself for the time when those 3 things don't happen. Have a prep bag, something that's got like basic amenities, food and water, like in store for a good amount of time, a couple changes of clothes, just in a pack, ready to go in case there's a disaster. Like another good name for it is a bug out bag. Something like if you have to leave and you have to hurry and you're not sure how secure you're going to be in the future, or if money's going to be helpful to you in the future, have a pack of just emergency supplies. Approach your housing with this idea of like, hey, I can't always guarantee the power will just work, so what do I need to do to make sure that my family will be safe, especially your pets. Pets are something that people often like forget about, like they don't factor in like, oh, I can bundle up or do something to like get myself somewhere safe, but what about my pet? Like I can't just leave them in a freezing house in the wintertime. There's a lot to be considered there.
また七曜協会の運動にも協力し、日曜学校の教科編成に動力という科目を加えるなど、技術的な知識の浸透にも力を入れています。
That's kind of cool that the church works with them on this too, though. Like the idea that because the church is usually the educator for most kids. Like it sounds like they don't have organized schools in most cases. Like the Janus Academy is kind of an anomaly. Most people just kind of do what Estelle and Joshua would do, which is where they go to the church every day for lessons where they learn basics, functional like math, history, statistics, and now orbital technology in use to just kind of help themselves. And like that's kind of interesting that the church facilitates something like that that's so critical.
3. 技術を通じての世界平和への寄与。この崇高な使命のため、 当財団は設立当初から遊撃士協会と密接な関係を保ってきました。
So it says that the organization had a close tie to the Bracers Guild ever since its founding, but it sounds like Hamilton was the one that pushed for that.
国際的な治安維持組織として設立された同協会は、中立の立場から国際紛争の調停を行うなど、今日の世界の安定になくてはならない組織です。
So this also makes me think that outside of bracers, most people don't get access to orbital casting abilities. So bracers must look like freaking demigods, running around throwing fireballs and crazy stuff like that, where most people just can't do that. They probably have never seen that.
当財団は資金による援助はもちろん、世界で唯一の戦術オーブメント生産地として装備面からも同協会をバックアップしてきました。
I think I completely missed that. Holy cow. So I think I got caught up in the Lehman State and saying I want to know where that is. I want to go visit it. I completely missed that the Lehman State is the only place where tactical orbments are produced. I don't think that's true because I'm sure Ouroboros and the 13 factories have also developed that technology. But I kind of love that idea that basically this game's version of Switzerland, this neutral state, is also the only place where tactical orbments are created. That's interesting. I like that. I want to know more about this Lehman area. This place sounds cool.
その過程で得られた実戦での教訓が戦術オーブメントの改良に大きな役割を果たしたことは言うまでもありません。
That's fair. Any technology, and especially what's it called? The military industrial complex, which is what the Lehman groups are clearly a part of, whether they have the best intentions or not, they love nothing more than an excuse to get field data to prove where things are good and what needs work.
どのような機械であっても洗練された形にたどり着くまでには長く苦しい歴史が隠されているものなのです。
Until we get the wish.com versions that explode randomly.
七葉暦1190年。
Alright, so this is, I think they said that the Epstein Foundation was founded in 1155. So that would be, so now it's 35 years later, right?
動力文明の明日に向けて、当財団はサイス中央工房と共同で動力ネットワーク構想を発表しました。
Oh, I like this.
大陸全土を動力通信のネットワークで一つに結ぼうというこの壮大な計画には、私たちの希望が込められています。
Ladies and gentlemen, they are inventing orbital internet.
それは対話を通じての平和の模索です。
We'll see, but I love that. I do love the idea that we're basically walking our way from going from people are barely starting to heat their homes with orbital technology, and within probably a decade or two, people are going to have smartphones and the internet.
近年、動力機と平和との関係はこれまでになく複雑なものとなってしまいました。
Understatement of the century.
無限のエネルギー循環を実現する動力機こそが世界に高級なる安定をもたらす。
The limitless looping of energy. Do you know how much people would pay, or how much it would improve our world if we had limitless looping energy? That's an insane concept. Basically, that's the pipe dream of something like cold fusion. Because cold fusion, while it's not technically limitless, it's essentially limitless because hydrogen is such a prominent, easy to get, element to get access to. Very small amounts of it going through a cold fusion process release so much energy that it would be hard for us to actually make more demand than we had sources of hydrogen for. It's such a clean thing because its byproduct tends to be just water or elements like lithium. Fusion, helium and lithium are the result of fusion. It's if you can do it, that's basically limitless looping energy. Man, that would absolutely change everything.
そんなエプスタイン博士の言葉を裏切るように動力革命後の世界は混迷の道をたどっています。
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality.
エレボニア帝国とリベール王国との紛争では飛行艇をはじめとする動力兵器が使用されました。
It's kind of like the World War I issue where like they developed all this technology for like rifles and machine guns and grenades, and everyone was so excited to try them out. They basically were looking for an excuse to fight each other.
兵器の動力化の流れは今後も進み、戦争の結果をより悲劇的にしていくことでしょう。かかる現実を前にして、どうやって平和な世界を築いていくのか。動力通信の切り開く未来、国境や人種を超えて人々を結びつける力にこそ、その解決の糸口があるのではないでしょうか。国家の枠を超えて人々が語らい、理解を深め、争いのない世の中を共に作り上げていく。
The downside is that this world that they're envisioning, for like while in some ways it sounds like a paradise, there's plenty of people who would hear you describe it exactly how you have and would say, holy cow, why would you wish for something so horrible? Like, just because you can envision a world that you think would be great for everybody, I doubt it would be a peaceful one, because humans are humans. We tend to like want to, I don't know, work off of our own angles. It's difficult to find something we can all universally agree is a good thing.
来たるべき理想世界への挑戦はまだまだ始まったばかりなのです。
And you know what's funny? It's like, I'm looking at the time now. Yeah, I went on such a rant. I think I did about the same thing last time. Like, I ranted a ton because like that was such a stimulating door. I love that door for the world building and just like to get me thinking about stuff. I love it. But I rambled like so much. So yeah, that was that door. And then we have more lore stuff we're going to do. So we're probably going to do that, and then we'll probably goof around a little bit more, but we're already like more than halfway through this video, I guarantee you. And like, I hope you don't mind, but like I said, the recording I did was like 3 hours long. This is probably why, because I got so caught up in this thing, and then imagine all the combat and slogging I was doing that you are missing out on. Missing out on being the key word. But anyway, let's get ourselves back where we were. Okay, so now we come here, and after all of our journeys, we found this. And I was like saying here, I was like, because when we come to this map, basically, once we got through the first map, you teleport to this room and you come running up here, and the first thing you see is like this gem just floating here. And I was like, why is it just sitting there? We've had so much like pomp and circumstance with all of these gemstones that we finally get through this one, find like a mini boss like here at the middle, and then we get down here, and it's just sitting here. So I was like, that's weird, right? I thought there was going to be a big twist or something. And it kind of is. Found a sealing stone.
これは。へえ、やたらと綺麗な宝石ね。
Yeah, it is.
七曜石か何かかしら。いえ、これは封印石です。
Well, it's what's known as a sealing stone because we call it that. It's not like anyone told us they're called sealing stones, or did the computer / like weird like voice from the garden say that? Maybe she did.
エステルさんもこの石の中に封じ込められていました。そうなの？っていうことは、この中にも誰かが入ってるわけ？ええ、間違いありません。どなたか心当たりは？
父さんだったりしたら正直心強いんだけど。
That'd be great. I don't like how that idea is being floated out though, because you know a lot of the people we've recruited, we've ended up fighting, and so like that would be horrifying. I don't know if I'd want to fight Cassius. He sounds scary.
さすがにそれは虫がいいかもしれないね。
確かに。なるほど。
Number of possibilities.
いずれにせよ、一度拠点に戻った方がいいかもしれませんね。うん、そうね。
I like how it gives us this choice, but yeah, like we've explored everything here, so there's no reason for us not to go back to the garden. So we will do so. All right, we ready to go? Let's see what happens when we crack this puppy open. Like we just left Kevin alone, apparently. All right. So the barrier goes down. I just noticed that there's like a teleport door there. Maybe I should have found that door first, because now I have to backtrack. But that's okay. Who is it? Who is it? I was trying to think too, like who else? I was like, who could it be? Because I feel like we've got everybody.
この人は
まさか。もしかして。
おいおい
There he is.
先行弾か何者だ名乗りたまえ
Genuinely floored. I was like, this throws a lot of my own theories out the window here. Because think about it. I don't think he ever showed up on the Liberl arc. My running theory is that everyone who we were playing as or had here, there's everyone who joined us on the Liberl arc assault in some way or another. And I thought it was some kind of, since like whatever the boxes that we found clearly fell from that, like the crashing of the Liberl arc, which is something we saw right at the beginning of this. And it was fished out of the ocean. So I assumed that the artifact was tied to that. So why is Richard here of all people? Now, granted, he has a lot of ties to us as characters and individuals, but why is he here? It throws a lot of wrenches into things.
これは予想外だったわね。
Me neither, Estelle.
やはりお知り合いの方でしたか。王国軍の方のようですが。
ええ、馴染み深い人です。
これは一体エステル君にヨシュア君それにクローディア殿下にユリア大尉まで
Yep, there she is.
リシャールさん、お久しぶりですね。
ご無沙汰しています。
こちらこそ挨拶が遅れて申し訳ありません。
He's so freaking loyal, it's terrifying.
王太女殿下におかれましては
顔をお上げください。お元気でいらっしゃいましたか。
は女王陛下の格別のお慈悲をもちまして
Good to hear, man. You definitely did some terrible stuff, but we have pretty solid proof that you were absolutely horrifically manipulated, and we really, like, justifiably can't hold it all against you.
しかしこの状況どう考えても判然としません。できれば詳しい事情をお教えいただけないでしょうか。
Buckle up.
それについては私の方からご説明しましょう。
君は
That's the other wrench too, though. Like I've said it before, but like it's really starting to stick out further now. Reese has no real connection to anybody except for Kevin, maybe. So maybe this is all about Kevin somehow. But even then, how is Richard connected to Kevin? Because I feel like the two of them barely interacted.
はじめまして。七王教会聖杯騎士団所属。
聖杯騎士団なるほど。尋常ならざる事態が起きているものとお見受けした。お初にお目にかかる。私の名はアラン・リシャール。
Alan Richard.
元王国軍情報部大佐にしてクーデター事件を企てた逆賊。
I mean, I understand, but like you can't let that be your like. I feel like you shouldn't put that on your resume.
そして現在では R&A リサーチという調査会社を経営しているものだ。
Nice.
なるほど。しかし、何と言ったらいいものか。
どうしたの？やっぱりこんな話、いきなり信じるのは無理？
Yeah. No. He says something here that really threw me for a loop, and I went on a tirade, which I'll kind of replicate, but like, it kind of opened some doors for me in like perspective-wise of like what's actually going on here, what might be happening.
正直なところ、それもある。だがそれ以上に、なぜ私なのかと思ってね。
Exactly. That was my question too when I saw you.
顔ぶれを拝見する限り、ここに集まった者はそれなりにゆかりのある者同士のようだ。女神の導きか、何らかの意図か。まさに共に協力し合うのにふさわしい関係にあると言えよう。
言われてみれば。
Yeah, we do kind of have the perfect team.
僕は別にあんたと協力なんてしたくないけどね。
Of course you gotta say that.
能天気が移りそうだし。
あんですって？
Again, no, that's another great discrepancy in the line delivery where Estelle in our English version says, oh, you're gonna really feel stupid after I thwack your brains to mush. But like the Japanese response was simply, what'd you say? Or what was that?
2人とも。
だがこの私はどう考えてもこの場にいるのにふさわしい人物だとは思えない。かつて大それた陰謀を巡らし、君たち、いやリベールそのものを窮地に陥れた大罪人。
Ironically, you did that with the best of intentions. I don't know what that counts for, but
一体何の間違いかと思ってね。
リシャールさん。でも大佐だってオートが襲われた時駆けつけてくれたじゃない。そうですよ。あの部下の人たちと一緒に町のみんなを助けてくれて。
正直あれは助かったわね。
その後もハーケン門に向かった僕たちやクローゼの代わりにオートの守りを引き受けてくれました。
yeah, that was good.
確かにそういう意味じゃ協力者だったと言えなくもねえな。
しかし
リシャール殿、それを言うならまさにその時エステル君やリベールの敵として立ちふさがっていたのはこの僕だ。
Counterpoint, Olivia, like Olivia Dork, whatever your name should be now. You were there specifically to prevent that from escalating. In fact, if anyone else had been there, it would have just been an invasion right then and there. But you were there and were able to do a pseudo negotiation to keep things at bay for a little bit of time. You were you weren't doing the terrible thing being at Hacken Gate. You were saving Liberl by being at Hacken Gate.
その僕が何のためらいもなく仲間としての身分を謳歌している。それを考えたらあなたがそんなに葛藤する必要はないと思うけどね。
お前はもう少し葛藤した方がいいと思うのだがな。
Oh, poor Vander.
ですが王子、あなたは最初から帝国軍の陰謀を食い止めるために動いておられた。
Exactly. So when I first saw this, I did go on a very similar tirade. I basically expressed the same thoughts before Richard pointed this out, because I was like, how can you say you were doing a terrible thing there? There's the only time that works is that from the perspective of like the random soldiers you were traveling there with.
やはり私とは立場が違うでしょう。
Well, again, no. We had wibbly wobbly brainy wainy stuff happening to you where you'd been kind of hypnotized by frickin' Weissman.
それを言うなら僕は
You're just here with your cute Kapua hat.
僕たちだってあんたたち情報部に利用されていたとはいえ空賊をしてたことには変わりないよ。
Yeah, but you also helped us out.
まあいろいろあったけど今は女王陛下に許してもらって民間の運送会社なんかやっている。似たような立場なんじゃないの？
それは
大切なのは過去じゃない、今と未来ってことでしょ。
そうですよ。リシャールさんの件があれば私たちもすごく助かりますし。
Someone as baller as you. Ooh, that's an interesting choice of words.
ここはぜひご協力をお願いします。
アネラス君。
アネラスさん。
I do like this, so like we actually have the context of these two meeting because of the door we went through.
何気に大佐と知り合いだったりするの？この前カシウスさんと会った時にちょっと会って。父さんと？話を伺っている限りあなたの協力を拒む理由はどこにもなさそうですね。
Sounds
むし
good.
ろぜひとも力になっていただければと思います。
Aww.
なんでしたら聖杯騎士団への協力という名目でも構いません。いかがでしょうか？
わかった。どうかよろしくお願いする。
やったよかった。
よろしくお力添えください。
期待に添えればいいのだが、それはともかく一つ確認したいことがある。
This is the really interesting part.
何でしょうか？
私たちは全員ほぼ同時刻にいきなり白い光に包まれて、その時の格好は皆そのままなのだろうか。
I love this question. What kind of question is that?
そういえばリシャール殿、退役されたはずなのにどうして情報部の軍服を？
そういうことか。察するに白い光に包まれた時。
お察しの通りだ。現在
私はルーアン市で事務所を構えているのだが。
I have not once willingly worn my uniform because it's a source of shame for him.
そこでかつての軍服に袖を通したことは一度もない。白い光に包まれた時もシャツにスラックスという普通のいでたちだったはずだ。
And this is where I had a really cool insight. Man, like, it almost feels like it would be worth resurrecting the audio for just for that, but like having you just watch a screen where I'm just like speaking, like, I don't know, I feel like I could still just like kind of share my thoughts at the time, even though they're a little more cultivated because I was on my like little psycho like conspiracy map rant there, but I was like, oh my gosh, wait, there's stuff here that's starting to make sense now. So we're in this weird extra-dimensional space, right? And it's not too far-fetched because the tetracycle towers and the Liberl arc itself was all about like manipulation of space, right? And it's about like going into like extra-dimensional areas. So it's like not that unreasonable to think, oh yeah, an artifact that was found on the Liberl arc would do something similar. But I no longer think that's what's happening, and this is the key, I think, to what's actually going on. I think we're in a dream. Why do I think that? Well, for one thing, all the weird wibbly stuff and all the like bringing people in. But the concept of Richard is saying here, it makes me think that what's happening is that people are coming in a projection of who they see themselves as, like deep down, like their core self. Now, for most of us, because a lot of these people are accomplished individuals who are like confident in who they are, their goals and their aspirations, are appearing basically exactly who they are and what they're wearing back in the real world, because they're just content with what they're doing there and who they are there. Richard, however, is coming in here, and while out of shame he refuses to put on his uniform, at his heart and soul he still is a loyal soldier of Liberl. And so when he appears here, he's wearing his uniform because in his heart he still is a soldier, and probably always will be. And that got me thinking, okay, if this is that, then maybe where we are is like not so much an extra dimensional space in the sense of like a physical dimension. What if it's more like a spiritual dimension? And then I thought about like, wait, what are the enemies we've been facing here? We've been fighting devils and demons, things that are spiritual in nature, things that aren't even that affected by the elemental powers, but instead are affected by the more metaphysical powers of space, mirage, and time. And then I thought about this part too. If we go under that assumption, we could be like, okay, well, what are some like exaggerated powers from one of like the various branches of orbital technology that would be more a better fit if we're not actually in a physically a different like dimensional space, you know, like this space orbals, like Cephis, or like the oh crap, what's it called? The really big orbals, like the ones that are super huge. The fetch. It was the thing we fought at the end of the last game. You know what it is though. I'm sure I just can't think of the name. But like those really, really big ones, like the one that was basically running and was the heart of the Liberl arc was the space like super orbment. So is there another orbment that would be a better fit for what we've been seeing here? And I think it's Mirage. The Mirage, whatever the name is, like I'm so dumb. Like I know I'll know it as soon as I hear it, but like that, you know what I mean? Like that, the super gem. What if the Mirage is behind us? Because Mirage could feel like Dream, and that's the thing too. Is like this area that we've been playing in that like you didn't see any of the combat for, is oddly themed. The theme of it has been these enemies, and specifically it has like the strange doll things that petrify you when they attack you, or do another status effect. Like it describes them as being like nightmares that haunt and invade the minds of children. And then they have like incubus and succubi that are based male and female versions of these weird demonic creatures. And it says that they attack people in their sleep, giving them bad dreams and stealing some of their life force. And it's like all the enemies we've been facing on this level have been some type of demon that harnesses the power of dreams. And so when you put that together with this whole like question about the uniform and what's going on here, that's what made me think, okay, I don't think we're physically here like we assumed. I think we're here cognitively. I think our spirits or our minds have been stolen away from our bodies. So wherever it was and whatever's happening in the real world, we've all just kind of collapsed to the ground. But I think it's only been like a second. I don't think any time's actually passed since we've been collapsed, or maybe it's been like a couple minutes. But we're here in a dreamland where time doesn't really have any meaning. because like it's all at the speed of thought, and we're in this prison working together as our like our souls. So like when these enemies are attacking us, they're feeding off of our souls directly, not from our physical bodies. And so maybe that's part of it. Maybe like incrementally, like the attacks that are being, like the things that are coming after us and attacking us are helping siphon off our life force and helping strengthen whoever this like master Phantasma is. And then I still think too that like what this is, I think this is a prison, and I think it's a prison for the mind. Way back in the day, someone, or at least two very powerful entities, were put in here because they were dangerous or considered dangerous. They've been trapped here for a while. But then we have the things like where the bookshelves have books that are modern and old. Like they're getting information from the real world. If this place is foundationed on dreams, then it's very reasonable that you could connect to other people when they are dreaming and get more modern information from them. So the books that are appearing are maybe books that are being read in the physical world by people who are just touching on this plane of dreams when they go to sleep. And so that's expanding and makes it so that you have all this modern stuff in here as well as like all this really ancient material. And you also have this idea of all of us being trapped here in a mind palace. I still think that the way this game is going to end, we're going to have a big fight, and then the choice that's going to have to be made by Kevin and or Reese is the realization that there's something that is evil, twisted, and dangerous here. It's been waiting for millennia, baby, to be able to free itself, and it found a path forward when people invaded the Liberl Arc and finally released it. Because when the Liberl Arc appeared, not only was it back in normal space-time, which meant it could, like, the cube and the prisoner inside it could interact with the world again, but also any of the jailers and the people who would know how dangerous an artifact he is, who would know how quickly they needed to isolate that particular cube, are no longer alive. So now is the time to try and break free. So for whatever reason, I still don't understand, he pulls the consciousness of all these people in, and is basically going to set up a position, I think, to put Kevin specifically. I think that's what the idea now is. Like, I think what's the thing that ties all of these people together? I think it's Kevin. And I think that ultimately what's going to happen is the goal of this entity is to simply put Kevin in a position where Kevin will have gathered the power necessary, because he's not a direct prisoner. By unlocking all of these terminals, he will gather the power necessary to unlock the prison. Maybe the other entity, like the lady here at the garden, who's like seems really weak, maybe that she's meant to be the guardian to make sure he never escapes, but she's been weakened over time. And now we're gathering power, and we can then like restore power to her, or inadvertently we could, I'm thinking what could actually happen is we will find out at the end that the choice is going to become this. Either we are now permanently stuck inside this prison with the entity because like it's a one-way trip, or we utilize the keys that we're slowly gathering to unlock the prison, letting us out but also releasing whatever's trapped in here. And when that happens, we then are going to have to be accountable for whatever that thing does. And I bet your butt it's going to go join Ouroboros in some way. And now the only other question I have that's odd is like, why is Leon here? Because it's pretty clear that the masked guy that's been taunting us with the Phantasma guy is Leon. Is that a hint that he's still alive somewhere? Because we never saw him die, really. Like, we kind of did. So I thought that was finale, but it's also like, I've seen games pull people back from that before. So we'll have to see. But it's clear he's in here, so is he just an imprint? Like a copy of a man who was dying at the time? Or is there something more to him as well? I don't know. But that's kind of my running theory. So my big theory at the minute is that we are in a dream palace, a dream prison more like. And that eventually we're gathering all this information and walking through all these challenges and stuff, gathering power that we don't really understand. And eventually we'll be holding in that cube that we've been using in here. Essentially, it's the key to the prison. And the choice that Kevin's got to make is going to be, does he uphold the principles of the Gralsritters, which basically talks about containing evil at all costs? You know, normally that meant like being willing to kill to protect people. And he's been willing to do that even though he hates it. But would he be able to condemn himself and all of his friends and closest like family to eternity locked in a prison in order to keep an evil contained? And I don't think he can. So I think the game's going to end in a bittersweet fashion where we'll be able to be let out, having learned some lessons and aware that a great evil has been unleashed on the world, but knowing that it's our fault that it got out. That's going to suck.
それは確かにおかしな話ですね。今までにはないパターンかもしれません。
もしかしてあの影の王君がやっぱり大佐には軍服だよねってわざわざ着替えさせたりしたとか。
Oh, and then there's your theory. Like all the
あん
turn.
たね。それじゃあただの軍服フェチじゃない。
They've got a military uniform fetish too.
あ、でもちょっとわかる気がするけど。
Alex like, I kind of get it.
うん。
It's just that, I kind of get it.
うん。
Claudia, I kind of get it.
君たち。
たく最近の小娘どもは。
I counter. I think women in uniform are also pretty good. This was my favorite. I was like, I want this to be a meme. I want this to be a snapshot. I almost want to make this the banner for my channel. To just take that picture and just display it there. Has no idea what's going on. That's this defining feature of my life.
ま、いずれにせよ新たな手がかりにはなりそうだ。俺たちが飛ばされてきた理由、そろそろつかめそうな気がしてきたな。
I think I had that breakthrough. At least I'm feeling pretty good about my theory.
ええ、僕もそんな気がします。それどころか、この影の国の成り立ちも。
Yeah, I think it's a dream.
そうか。ならば私もこの件については今は気にしないでおくとしよ
う。では準備を整えたら改めて探索に向かいましょう。
Oh, you know what? I just thought of something else too. Like the whole door system, and like remember how Reese and Kevin found like basically their mentors' weapons, like the weapons that their mentors like used that inspired them like to pick up those same swords. You know, Reese like with her sister had the Templar blade, and then Kevin, I think he followed in the footsteps of like his like trainer like at the academy. Was it Carmelia, like, or whatever her name is, like using a bow gun, like and they found those like weapons that were like echoes of like their history, right? He's been tormenting us with that, and also giving us like access to memories, and that we through those memories unlock power. Again, that's kind of builds up this idea that like thought, memory, and like emotions are strength here in this dreamland, and it makes sense to the Lord of Phantasma. If he's like in charge or like just understands his place like the back of his hand, he could utilize our own memories against us or for us. And so the doors are purposely there to help manipulate and shepherd our thoughts, or at the very least to help access more power that we need to be able to eventually break out. And like the utilization of those memories is because this is the dream, and a dream is a place where we can sometimes go over or relive our own memories.
リシャールさんが解放されたことで新たな道が開けたはずです。
Yes, it did. All right. And then I also point out here, it looks like we have 2 slots remaining. And I was like, wait a minute. If we have Richard, who was literally someone I don't think we've ever had the opportunity to play as, who could our last 2 people be? They could be anybody. Could it be Cassius after all? It kind of dropped a hint of that. I doubt it though. Unless, like, but it would be kind of fun to see like what he's capable of as a character. But I don't know if we'd actually get him. I do think maybe the next character based on this premise would be, oh, what's her name? The lieutenant that followed under Richard, like who's like obsessed with him, right? I could see her being here. If we have Richard, like I could see her being a part of this, and maybe getting a chance to learn more about her from her perspective, because she kind of came across as a bit of a dummy in both games. So it might be interesting to see a little bit of a redemption arc from her, or at least to like see what she thinks, or what she like how she thinks. And then the last one, I don't know. I really am not sure who else it could be, but like now that the gate, like Richard's kind of opened the gate to anybody, I was like, I don't know. Heck, maybe it'd be Maybell. I don't think it will be, but wouldn't that be hilarious if it were Maybell? Another interesting person would be, oh, what if it's Leon? What if we got to have Leon as a team member? That could be fascinating. Or another member of Ouroboros? I don't know. There's a lot of like opportunities that could be. I just have no earthly idea what it's gonna be. I do think it's kind of fun, and maybe that's the point too, that Richard is also kind of a soft door to open up stuff to the concept of saying like, hey, up until now, we've probably like been like giving you anticipation of like seeing all your favorite characters from the first 2 games returning, but now we've kind of got everybody with the penultimate being Estelle, but the last 3 slots are gonna be like people you couldn't play before. And maybe Richard is the soft opener to open us to the concept so that when they throw us a big, like twist character, it won't seemingly come out of nowhere. So I think that's really fun. I'm going to keep my current team for now, but I do think it'd be fun to play with Richard eventually. But I really like my team and its setup. I kind of want to still do more with them before we jump into that. Yeah, so now we're here. I guess last time I ended the game here, and I think I've rambled so much I also need to end pretty soon, but maybe what we can do is we could go around and talk to everybody in the camp real quick to like, kind of get a feel of things. So actually, now that I say that, maybe I should dismiss like Joshua and Chloe, and we should like get some other members on the team and talk to everybody and then kind of put them back on the team at the end. Let's go talk to some people and then we'll end today's episode. Again, like last time, like this full recording is not going to be like it's like only a third of the last one's recording, but that's because we didn't do any combat. Like literally anything else is the combat. What? She's got a speech bubble over her head and she's sitting in front of a glass of wine. What is happening to Tita?
しかし、大佐の登場は少しばかり予想外だったな。
Yeah, me neither.
そうなると場合によっては。カシウスの旦那あたりも
That's the second person to say that. Maybe it will happen.
いや、待てよ。共和国にいた俺が巻き込まれているってことは、あいつもあり得るのか。
Kilika? That would be cool. Oh, I would love to have Kilika here. Zin is deep in thought, something clearly on his mind. You're also obsessed with Kilika. I'm gonna be sad if I find out you don't end up with her. No, I refrain. I don't want water.
エステルちゃん。
聞いたかエステル。こいつ何でもあの大佐とやり合ったことがあるらしいぞ。
Yeah, yeah.
本当？ちょっといろいろあって。
And in our universe, you beat him.
成り行きで勝負することになっちゃって。そうだったんだ。そういえば私たちも一度だけ戦ったことがあるけど、4対1でやっと勝てたぐらいだし。
あいつ剣はカシウスのおっさん直伝らしいからな。俺もこの機会に手合わせ願いてえもんだぜ。
I'm sure you will.
でも私もあれから少し強くなったつもりだし、もう一度大佐に手合わせしてもらおうかな。
Interesting. Very confident. And she does, like, Annalise is way stronger than she seems.
あの大佐相当強いらしいからな。ここで会ったのも縁だろう。あの大佐相当ここで会った。
Alright. What are you thinking? Just dreaming, maybe?
軽く居眠りしてるみたいね。
ティータさんは一番初めに封印石から解放しましたから、そろそろ疲れが来ているのでしょう。
That's true.
それじゃあ仕方ないわね。
はい。
Aww.
かわいい。
She is cute. I agree. She's so cute. Also, interesting though, yeah. So she's sleeping. That could be a wrench in my idea that this is the dream. Because I was kind of like, I just realized like it feels like none of us have ever taken any serious rest. So can we fall asleep here? I was thinking like if this were a dream, maybe we wouldn't ever sleep here. But she clearly is, so I don't know. Maybe we're not actually in a dream after all. But I still feel like it's the best guess I've had in a while.
Hmm. 大丈夫そうね。普段から相当鍛えてるみたいだし。
Good.
普段から相当鍛えてるみたいだし、大丈夫よ。こっちは見とくから心配しなさんな。
That's true. Hey, Kevin. Yeah, he looks like he's just snoozing now.
だいぶ落ち着いたみたいね。
はい。
そんな格好でヨシオに近づくなよ。
Wait, what? Are you talking about to Shara? Why are you scared about Shara?
胸が大きいからって出しすぎだぞ。 くそー、あの胸は反則だろ。
She's like, take it!
あの
普段から相当こっちは
Okay, I thought she might have another line.
リシャールさんの解放には今までにないパターンが見られた。
Yeah, they are.
だがこれもルールにのっとっているはずなんだ。この世界を成り立たせているルール。もう少しで何かがつかめそうな気がするんだけど、この世界を成り立たせているルール。もう少しで。
Yeah, I agree. I do think like my best guess is the dream angle, because the idea that he appeared more like how he views himself rather than how he was is a huge clue. Because like again, it's not even like how he consciously views himself, because he like purposely says, I avoid my uniform at all costs, but when I appeared here, I just had it on. Because I think it has more to do with your subconscious than your consciousness.
確かに奇妙なものばかりだ。
Oh yeah, you're staring at the tree that just provides food that we ask for. That is weird.
やはり異空間なのか。
大佐、やっぱり信じられないかな。
エステル君か。すまない。少しばかり戸惑っていてね。有効な攻略法を見出すには少々時間がかかりそうだ。
Agreed.
攻略法ってさすが大佐、落ち着きまくりね。
That's our colonel.
いや、だからもう大佐じゃないんだよ。軍も辞めてしまったからね。
ああ、そういえば民間の調査会社を経営してるとか言ってたわよね。
I mean, he's basically doing an intelligence division, just an unofficial one.
まあ大した会社ではないんだが、今はルーアンに小さな事務所を持っていてね。
Not bad. I like Ruan.
ジムの方はカノーネ君と2人でやらせてもらっている。
Kanona. That's the other girl. Like, so she's. I'm thinking she's gonna be here too.
あのカノーネ隊と
Of course she is. She's obsessed with him.
なんだか想像できないんですけど。
まあそうかもしれないね。
Next thing you could casually say like, yeah, we're expecting a child or something.
だが彼女も少しだけ変わったんだよ。
You were talking about the second coup she tried to do as well.
今はまあのんびりとやっているつもりだ。
Well, again, she was manipulated both times. That time with Ren. So like, ugh.
そっか。大佐もちょっと雰囲気が変わったみたいだし、民間会社っていうのも意外と合ってるのかもね。
そうだといいんだが、我々もいつまでもここにいるわけにはいかない。
Man, he's so dedicated.
早く戻らなければね。
よろしくね、大佐。
Yeah.
だから大佐じゃないんだって。
No, but maybe.
ファンタズマ。この場が特定のルールを持っているなら、何らかの目的に沿って創造されたのだろう。
Yeah, I think from day one we knew this place was a prison.
その目的さえ分かれば、有効な攻略法も割り出せるのだがな。
リシャール殿の退役の際にはモルガン将軍もカシウス准将もかなり引き止められたのだ。不幸にも間違いを犯してしまったが、リシャール殿は非常に優秀な軍人だったからね。
Well, the same was for Cassius, and Cassius still left. And you'll notice that the military didn't fall to pieces. Maybe Richard will come back when its time is right.
カシウス准将あたりはまだ軍に連れ戻そうと画策しているという噂だ。
Yeah.
うわー、あの不良親父、本当に人使いが荒いんだから。
No.
しかしリシャール殿まで取り込まれていたとは。協力者を取り込むというのがルールになっているのだろうか。
I mean, that's the rule. I feel like though that's starting to stretch it, because again, how much he helped us, yeah, by supporting us, but he didn't directly join the team ever.
リシャールさんが軍を退役なさってからはお会いする機会もありませんでしたけど、
Yeah.
会社の方のお名前は耳にすることがあるんですよ。
That's good.
へえ、意外と繁盛してるのかな。リシャールさんの会社のお名前は何度か耳にしたことがあるんです。
Oh, Chloe, I miss you.
R&A リサーチ社。
元王国軍情報部大佐アラン・リシャール。
剣は剣聖より次、頭脳戦、諜報戦においても相当のものだと聞いている。
Oh yeah, he's terrifying.
敵に回したくない男だ。元王国軍情報
Oh, he
味方。
just says the same thing. Okay. Now is Olivia down here, or is he off, like avoiding Mueller, which like would track? Yep. He's probably down, maybe serenading everybody by Kevin again.
今はぐっすり寝てるみたいだね。
Now that Joshua's gone, she has a different voice line. That's so funny.
うなされることも減ってきたし、あとはもうちょっと熱を下げないとね。
ジョゼットさん、よろしくお願いしますね。
うん。任せときなって。
うん。普段から相当鍛えてる。
Alright, so you're saying the same thing. But yeah, like when Joshua's here, she's freaking out. She's like, "Get those like weapons of mass destruction away from Joshua." She's so self-conscious. Ah, here he is, next to Tita.
ティータ君が少し疲れたというのでね、僕のピロートークで寝かしつけてあげてるのさ。
Oh, don't say it like that.
なんかとてつもなく危険な気がするんだけど。
Agreed, Estelle. Agreed.
同感。
やだな。僕のリードはいつだってレディーファーストだよ。
That doesn't make this better.
その思考が危ないっちゅうの。
しかしなんとも不正愛を刺激してくれる寝顔だ。
How would you know that? Oh
お
my
兄ちゃん
gosh.
も魅力的だが、パパと呼ばれるのもロマンだね。
I'm going to kill you. Like me, Persona 5, reach through the screen and kill you. That's, ugh. What a note to end this session on, huh? But I do think we're going to end things here for today. Alright, so that's a pretty good place for us to end things. I know we didn't do any much more than... we basically ended where I tried to end the last video. But that's because I think I went on a bit more ranting, a little more like explanation diving. I think if you'd seen the original, the one thing that like is kind of nice that we did it over again is I'm a lot more coherent with my thoughts, because basically I portrayed to you my same like arguments, but maybe some little amendments that I've made since then because of like some time to think about it. But I think I presented it in a much more concise way because I kind of knew where things were going to go as they were developing. It's definitely not as dynamic as like getting that first impression, which I know is really precious and really like fun to capture. But I feel like I didn't end up sacrificing a whole lot because of the type of like content that we covered today. So like I said, if this was going to happen, this was the time for it to happen. So in that regard, I'm kind of grateful. I'm grateful that it could have been so much worse, or we could have had such a much more like important, like critical story moment that was not reproducible at all, which sucks. But yeah, I guess like Unleashing Richard was kind of that, but I feel like there's probably bigger reveals that it could have been. And some of you apparently were very concerned about a potential door that's in the near future. So I hopefully that won't be a problem. But anyway, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your patience and for your support. It's wonderful. Next few weeks are going to be interesting. I have acquired a new job. This new job gives me much better hours and are much healthier for me, but subsequently, it's going to make it a little harder for me to set aside time to record videos. I think it'll be fine, but we're going to have to see. There's a lot of factors involved, and we're going to have to kind of finagle around them a little bit and try and make sure everything plays itself out okay. I think it should be fine. But there might be a little bit of hiccups here or there as I kind of get adjusted and kind of learn what the new reality of my situation is going to be. So be patient with me. Keep in mind that there might be an occasional video here or there over basically through March, where I'm trying to get adjusted to everything, where things will kind of shake out a little. But this in every other way, like this job is a really big improvement. Not having to work nights anymore will be super good for my just overall physical and mental health. Night shift is just rough. It's hard on a person, and I definitely felt that effects pretty difficult a lot, especially because like it made it hard for me to do things socially with like friends or family, which is important to me. And so having a normal sleep and waking schedule should like open that up a lot. So that'll be really nice. And then also, I'm also getting paid more, so I should have more resources to pour towards the channel and just life in general. So that's wonderful. And I'm learning a new skill set that has a lot more overhead. Like there's a lot more growth opportunity in what the type of skills and talents I'm going to be developing in this new position. So I'm really, really excited about that, because the job I have at the minute is like, it's fine. It definitely taught me some useful stuff, but besides going into management, there literally was nowhere to grow. The new job I'm going into, I'm going into entry level, but besides like having experience at the job, they don't really expect much more to be able to progress and to branch out into some different avenues and paths in that company track. So it just means that in general, I'm going to have more opportunity. And it's also one of those things where like, no matter where I go, I should be able to find a similar job or a job that works in a similar like area. Like basically no matter where, even in other countries, if I really, really wanted to. So there's a decent chance this is going to be a very actionable and long-term type of position. So that's very exciting. So yeah, very, very cool. I'm very happy about that. So thank you for your support and patience, especially as I go through these changes. But I'm hoping that it'll pay itself forward and that we'll continue to see the channel grow. Of course, it'd be nothing cooler than being able to do streaming full-time. Man, though, I keep thinking about, like, with the advent of AI and stuff, I think we're going to start seeing more and more, especially, like, VTubers that are going to just essentially be AI. I think eventually we're going to hit a point where people will have a hard time telling, and at that point, it'll be really difficult to be a genuine content creator, because artificial content creators will be able to pump out such consistent, like, content that as long as it's, like, enjoyable to watch, it's always going to win out over, like, especially with YouTube actively saying they're going to lean into supporting AI more and more. I do worry for the channel, not so much the channel, for content creation in general, but the thing that I've always made my selling point is that I'm genuine. I'm here, I'm a person, you can see that I'm here, obviously maybe AI will be able to artificially create this in a realistic way, but like, I'm hoping you'll know that this is going to be a place where you're going to always have a genuine person who's genuinely excited to share stories and gaming content. And never in a way where I'm trying to be hyperbolic. I'm not trying to be excessively entertaining for the sake of entertainment. I'm just here to share good stories and share my impressions of them and try and make it fun at the same time. So in a world that's constantly changing and getting faker and faker, I hope that I can be a source of grounded entertainment that can keep us all anchored to our humanity a little bit and just be able to be a place where we can enjoy these great stories together. So I appreciate you being here. Hopefully we continue to grow our community. Hopefully I can someday achieve that dream of being able to do this full time. But until then, I'm just going to keep doing it because I'm having a blast. So thank you for being a supporter of that. And until the next video you're watching me up and see me in next, I'll see you there.